Hey, today I'm going to show you how to take a button like this with text in Rive and turn it into an animatable item in a Webflow website that you can swap the text out on so that you can use it as a component throughout your site. So here's what it looks like on the final site. You can see it is the same animation, the same item in different spots within a layout, and it is a single Rive file with text runs being updated at runtime. And it also has the ability to update the URL for where it's going to, which I'll show as well. I think these are all going to the same place, but we'll look into the Webflow version and see how it works. But first, let's look again at the Rive file. So you can see how it is set up here. So I'm not going to go into how to do the text animations and the basic state machine kind of stuff. There's, I think, a lot of resources out there for how to do that, but a couple things to point out are I've got my button text and username text runs within my file. So if I look at my text element, you can see that I've got two text runs set up within it, and that's optional. This is something you could do in this case, like if you wanted to actually put in someone's name or username, that could be useful to have it as a separate text run. You could do this all with one text run if you wanted to, but because it's in the same text element, I am using the same animation to control the entire text element. So even though the runs are separate, they can have separate data in them. It's one item for this kind of wave animation that's happening with the text. The other thing that's going to be important to note in the Rive file is these events. So I've got hover on and hover off. I will be using the JavaScript runtime code to change the cursor when the user hovers the button. That's not something that happens automatically, but is really useful for indicating that this is a clickable button. And then finally, there's the link event itself also. So that happens when you click it, and it's actually at the end of this clicked timeline. We fire the link event, so it has a little bit of a click animation, a very short one. This is half a second. Just to give a little bit extra motion before taking you to the page. And right now, actually, it's set up with as a URL type. You can do this if you want to hard code the URL value into it. But I also, in my code, have it set up so that you can change this URL, which we'll look at. So I think those are the important things to note within the setup of this animation. But you also notice, I guess, the listeners for this hover interaction and click interaction are set up within the Rive file itself. So we're not going to do anything with custom code or in Webflow to make that work. So over here, like I said, you can see this is the same interaction and the text is being updated. So let's look at the Webflow view of this. So what I've got in Webflow, and I'm using Webflow's native Rive integration for this, which, and you'll notice there's kind of a little bit of a glitch right here with this. A previous version of this file that I had uploaded didn't have the button centered in my canvas like I do here. It was a little bit off center. And even though I've re-uploaded the file and it is positioned properly on the live site in the Webflow designer, it still is previewing the previous version of it, which is just strange. I don't know why that is. Anyway, but I've got this put into a component. So if I click into my component, and actually I set it up, it's a component within a component, because the way I have my animation set up here is that when you click, that click kind of exploding animation goes out beyond the button. So I do have extra space around my button for that purpose. But I also wanted to be able to kind of position the button just using basically the bounds of the button itself and have it overflow there. So I put it inside a sort of button wrapper class, and then there's the Rive button itself, which has some custom properties on it. And if I click into that, you'll see for the Rive itself, it is set up to be absolutely positioned, and that's because the button wrapper is set to relative, and then I am offsetting it specifically for the size of this canvas. So I'm hard coding some sizes in for this to give it some consistency. I think there's other ways to handle that, but for this demo, that's what it looks like. And then here on the Rive instance itself, I'm setting up some attributes, and these are what we're going to use to target this with our custom code. So, and also makes it really easy to use this as a component because you can make these attribute values component properties. So you'll see I have data message, data username, the Rive button itself. So this is just to indicate that this is the button, and then the data URL. So then when I come back out of the component back to this one, you'll see actually these are set up as components as well, because I'm actually passing those to the additional one. So I have a component within a component, which may or may not be actually necessary, but that's how it's set up. So right now here though, you can see I have this to say, let's do this Rive, and it's going to the Riveflow website where I post some Rive and Webflow tutorials. But let's say I wanted to go to rive.app. So I will update that, and let's update this. Say like way to go, comma space, because those two text runs are right next to each other. So I'm going to keep a space in there. Say way to go Rive, and when I republish this, I'll give it a moment to publish. But right now it's saying let's do this Rive, and you'll see once it is published and I refresh, we're going to get way to go Rive. And when I click it, it's going to go to the Rive website instead of the Riveflow website. So it's using the URL that I put into the property here, as well as the text that goes into the property. You could also leave one of these blank, which is what actually I'm doing on this version down here, where it just says talk to an expert. So I wanted to kind of look like these buttons, but this one is the extra special one, right? And then this is going to have the URL for that one. And then same thing down here. This one just says subscribe. So it's a subscribe button, and we could change the URL here. So that's what's really nice about putting these into components, is that you can just expose those attribute values as properties and update them here, which is a bonus too. If you are working with multiple people and someone is in build mode, they're still going to be able to update those. So they can click on it and still update the those properties for the component, which is really great. So the thing then that we need to know about how this works is the custom code. So I'm using Slater for this, and I got some help from the Webflow team for how to target and address the Rive component within the Webflow site that is using the Webflow Rive integration rather than Canvas on the site. So if you, like me, are more familiar with setting it up using hosting your file and putting a canvas on the page and then creating your Rive instance using this method, this method makes it really easy. Okay, R is my basically my Rive instance, and so I know how to target it. So if I'm looking for state machine inputs, it's r.statemachine inputs and r.resize drawing surface to canvas. So it's going to be a little bit different setting it up with the native Webflow integration, but that's what this code is doing here. So it's going to start off by making sure that it's there, basically. And in this case, it's going to find, because I knew I was having multiple copies of this on the page. I wanted to find all the instances, so I'm using the data attribute, and again, that is Rive data button. That is here. If I click in, that is my attribute here, Rive data button. So it finds that and says, okay, this is the thing we're targeting. That is the Rive element. And then we've got some for each functionality, so that it's going to do this for all of them. But it's going to get the instance of the Rive module and call it my Rive instance. And then it also waits to make sure that everything is loaded properly. So if you're on a really slow connection, you might notice a flash of the default content before this runs and replaces the text. But this is what it's going to do. So the message and the username, these are going to be the parts that are addressing the two text runs. And so as a refresher, the text runs are called button text and username, and the capitalization and spacing are important. And actually, one other thing to highlight here, you'll notice that these have brackets around them, and that is because they are set to export name. You do have to have this option checked when you export your .riv file for this to work. So make sure, if you want your text run to be addressable and updatable, make sure you check the export name option for that. And so anyway, that's what we're going to reference here. So this, I'm going to get create a variable called message, which is getting the attribute data message from the element here. So here we go. We've got data message, and then the value of that is the component property. So that is going to say for my Rive instance, set this text run value, the text run called button text. So again, that's the button text run in the Rive file. Set that to be the value of message, which is this, right? And so that's going to be whatever we type in right here. So where it says message, this is where it says way to go. And then it's going to do the same thing with the username text run. Again, you don't have to have two text runs in your file, but this one does. So I'm just showing you how it works. It's going to find the data username attribute and find the username text run and set it to this username attribute value. So it's going to do that because it's in a for each. It's doing that for all of the instances on the page. So that's how the text runs are being updated. So again, that's why this now says way to go Rive, because I typed that into this component property, which is pretty cool. The other thing it's doing, I mentioned the events that are handling the hover. So again, if we look in here, you'll see when I hover onto the button, that hover on event fires, and when I hover off, it hovers off, right? So that is going to be a signal that we can listen to tell this to change the cursor. So it's going to say if the event data name is hover on, change the cursor element to be a pointer. If hover off fires, change the cursor back to auto. And then finally we have if the data event name is link, which is the other name of my event here, which fires after you click and it plays through the clicked animation. When that event fires, then set the window location to be the value of the URL, which I'm setting here. That is coming from the data URL property. And then this is just making sure that these instances, the events are reporting properly, and then again here also just making sure everything's loaded before it all works. So this is the code that's making it work, and so this is basically just connected to this component. And so I could put multiple instances of this component here. And so let's say on this second one, I'm going to say demo text space cool, right? And then let's, just for demo, we'll change this to webflow.com. And we'll publish this. So once this is published, we should see there will be two buttons right here, and they'll have different content, and the links will go to different places. So we got demo text, cool, right? And way to go. Looks like, yeah, I must not have put something in the second portion. Yep, I removed that there. So that is, yeah, it's doing exactly what I told it to. And then this one should go to the Webflow website, which it does, which takes me back to my dashboard because I'm logged in. And then this one is going to take me to, ooh, that's interesting. Do I not have? I wonder what is going on with that. Why is that one not happening? Are they too close? Okay, oh, I see. Okay, this actually is good to know. I think that the canvas area of this button is blocking the interaction with that one. So that's something good, something that can be addressed. But we can make it work. So anyway, yeah, in this case, if you have extra space around it, you might not want to put them side by side exactly like that. But that's how it works. One thing that's really great about this is that when you put text in to your Rive file, by default, it's going to load the entire font. But you can also switch this to hosted, so by default it's embedded. But if I switch it back from embedded to hosted and apply, you'll see you get this little note that pops up that says your asset will be hosted on Rive's CDN. So the user will still need to download it at runtime, but it's not going to be packaged into your Rive file itself. We'll confirm the other option is a little bit more advanced, as you can do referenced. And that one will actually let you use some runtime code to load in the font on your own. So if you already are loading a font for your site, you can just reference the same one, which will save the user from having to download it more than once, which is pretty incredible. But in this case, I have it set to hosted, which actually makes it so that when I save this file, it is 2 kilobytes. So it's not saving any of the text, the font data into it. It's just these other vectors and things that are happening, which is super small. So the file itself is 2 kilobytes. And if I look at it in Webflow, this will show that to you, 2.2 kilobytes. But the other thing to note is that when you use Rive on a website, you're gonna load the Rive dependency as well. And so this part gets a little bit beyond my understanding, but I just want to highlight it. So the unpackaged size on the npm site is 3.16 megabytes. But I'm told, and I've seen content in the past indicating that, and this is Guido, the CEO of Rive, he definitely knows what he's talking about, saying that's the largest version, but not what the end user downloads. And so there's a great note here too from Francois Marias, I think, and he notes that what the user downloads is actually much smaller than that. And then another comment here from Theo saying that he's been able to work with the Rive team to get it down below 500 kilobytes. So I don't know exactly how that works, but I know, yeah, maximum would be 3 megabytes, but it sounds like typically loads in much smaller than that. And especially if you have your smaller files. And in this case, it's only going to load this 2 kilobyte thing once, and then like I said, you can use it in multiple places. So there is the demo. Like I said, you can update this text at runtime, which I think is pretty awesome. Really makes for a fun button and a fun experience. And of course, you can use the same method for lots of other things for updating text in lots of other places on a site as well. Feel free to put questions in the comments. I'll check them out and try to help out. But using the native Rive integration in Webflow is pretty great, and you can also use custom code with it.